On this Wednesday night, Britain says enough with the Kremlin's sarcasm and defiance and takes action. Theresa May says the Russian state tried to murder a former spy and his daughter. Now, nearly 24 diplomats are getting tossed out of the UK. But some say the response is too much bark, not enough bite.
Also tonight, U.S. high schoolers walk out en masse. We're on the ground in Parkland, Florida.
And we'll take a brief moment to remember the life of the incomparable Stephen Hawking. This is The National.
A serious provocation and absolutely unacceptable. Those words could certainly describe London's anger with the Kremlin, but they were actually used today by Russia's ambassador to the UK, aimed at Theresa May's retaliatory action.
We believe that the United Kingdom should follow the international law. We are not ready to talk in the way of the ultimatums.
Earlier, British Prime Minister Theresa May announced tough retaliatory measures against Moscow after the Kremlin missed that deadline to explain how a Russian-developed nerve gas was used to poison a former Russian spy and his daughter.
This represents an unlawful use of force by the Russian state against the United Kingdom.
May said 23 Russian diplomats would be expelled, the largest such purge since the Cold War. The measures also include freezing Russian state assets that may pose a security threat and not sending the royals or British MPs to this summer's Soccer World Cup. Theresa May has also vowed to root out Russian criminals and corrupt elites.
There is no place for these people or their money in our country.
Mr. Speaker, this escalation of tensions between the two countries is rattling some Russians who now call the UK home. As Thomas Daigle tells us, they fear they're all being painted with the same brush.
With moneyed neighborhoods like Kensington and Mayfair, London knows how to cater to the super rich. Attracting oligarchs and exiles, this city's so full of Russian money, they call it Londongrad and Moscow-on-Thames. All the better for Yevgeny Chichvarkin and his wine shop, stocking bottles only the wealthy can afford. A change of pace from his previous career as a Moscow cell phone tycoon who spoke out a little too loudly against corruption in Russia and left in a hurry.
I'm worried about myself and my family, of course. It's still 10 times safer than in Russia.
The attack on Sergei and Yulia Skripal and the fallout has been bad news all around for Russian Londoners.
People are starting to say, yes, those guys brought chemical weapons to our territory. And this impacts on the Russians living here because they are associated with this supposedly barbarian policy.
Mr. Speaker, as I set out...
Announcing Britain's retaliation today, the Prime Minister aimed carefully.
Many Russians have made this country their home, abide by our laws, and make an important contribution to our country, which we must continue to welcome. But to those who seek to do us harm, my message is simple. You are not welcome here.
She set her sights most pressingly here on the Russian embassy, the center of what May called an espionage network in the UK. Not every Russian in London's a spy, though some sense they're being cast as the enemy. Oleg Kashin will be home with his son tonight, but he says he's still not made to feel at home here.
For you, for everyone, Russians are Russians, and me, I'm a Russian, and I think Theresa May says Russians, and she means me too.
Still, he needed to find a new home after this in 2010, getting beat to a pulp in Moscow after criticizing a Putin ally. As much as Britain can stand up to the Russian president, Kashin says it only serves to embolden Putin and his view of the West.
And I think today Putin became stronger.
Tonight, London police escorted vehicles from the embassy. Whether diplomats or spies, they're on their way out, while this crisis only seems to be growing. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, London.
But while Russian expats may not necessarily know how to feel about all of this, the power players in London and Moscow certainly do. As Susan Ormison explains, you can expect both sides to start swinging at each other even harder.
As if by design, as Britain tossed Russian diplomats, President Putin sent hugs to Crimeans on a campaign trip. Annexing Crimea still one of the biggest irritants between Russia and the West. Expect in coming days, Moscow will throw out British diplomats in equal numbers as it forecasts freezing relations. The Russian embassy tweeting, "We're not afraid of cold weather." But did May's reaction rattle Russia? No. Wholly inadequate, says Bill Browder, Putin's arch critic.
So if Britain really wanted to do something, and they still have the opportunity to do it, they should go out and freeze and seize property in the UK, which amounts to a lot, of the Russian government officials there and Kremlin-connected oligarchs. That would make Putin pay attention.
Expulsions traditionally are the way angry countries punish each other, the biggest nearly 50 years ago, when the UK kicked out 90 intelligence officers. Most recently, President Obama ousted 35 Russian diplomats for influencing the U.S. election, but there was no tit for tat. Moscow chose not to antagonize incoming President Trump. Russian relations have sunk since then.
This was a highly irresponsible act of terrorism by Vladimir Putin, and 23 is a drop in the bucket.
This is a question of the culpability of the Russian state.
In this case, the UK has indicated the expulsions are a first step.
The response is largely symbolic. It's meant to send a message to a domestic audience to say that despite a lot of questions about May's leadership, she's prepared to act tough.
The timing matters for Putin, too, who must calculate Russia's response with one eye on the election Sunday.
So, Susan, Theresa May obviously had some options. What else could she have done?
Oh, she could have boycotted the World Cup in Russia entirely, making English footballers very unhappy. She could have restricted Russian television, RT, in Britain, but the Kremlin said it would expel journalists in Moscow. Or she could work on this seizure of assets, and that may come.
And all this tough talk just kept going at the UN today, right?
Yes, the ambassador from the U.S. to the UN, Nikki Haley, had this to say.
If the Russian government stopped using chemical weapons to assassinate its enemies, and if Russia cooperated with the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons by turning over all information related to this nerve agent, we would stop talking about them.
Okay, so that is strikingly harsh from Nikki Haley. Let's see how that lands. But what about the Canadian reaction?
Well, Trudeau spoke to Britain today, and Chrystia Freeland's office issued a statement saying that all states should cooperate with the British investigation and said that it was Russia's likely involvement and condemned it for that.
Okay, Susan, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Turning their moment into a movement. The kids of Marjorie Douglas Stoneman High led nationwide protests this morning. We'll take you to Florida in a minute, but first a look at the tens of thousands of teenagers saying enough is enough.
Demand common sense gun reform! Never again! Never again! Never again! We are tired of fearing for our lives! 1, 2, 3, 4! All we want is gun reform!
Organizers had hoped about 3,000 schools would take part, with students walking out for 17 minutes, one for each of the 17 people killed at that high school in Florida exactly 1 month ago.
Hey, ho, ho! The NRA has got
At Columbine High School, hundreds remembered their own dead. 12 students and a teacher killed back in 1999 when such attacks were still a rarity. Some students in Canada walked out too, a gesture of solidarity. And where this all began in Florida, they remain passionate and determined.
I wanted people to know that Stoneman Douglas will be the last school that this happens to. We want it to make a change. We want to be the generation that changes everything.
The protest echoing the very words of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas herself. Be a nuisance when it counts. Do your part to inform and stimulate the public to join your action. Be depressed, discouraged, and disappointed at failure and the disheartening effects of ignorance, greed, corruption, and bad politics, but never give up. At the school named after the late environmentalist, they remember the 17 people who won't be coming back and the lawmakers who the students feel have let them down. Many of the survivors aren't old enough to vote yet, but they promise they'll have long memories. As Stephen D'Souza learned, they've vowed not to give up until they see real change.
It's always been Diego Pfeiffer's dream to sing with a Broadway star. Monday night, it became a reality.
So what do I say to these faces that I used to know?
Impressed by their activism, Mandy Gonzalez from the hit musical Hamilton invited students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas to join her Florida performances. It was a natural fit, given that Pfeiffer and the core group of activists that have emerged since the shooting are theater and drama students.
My friends were drama people. I don't mind the spotlight, but we do like the ability to change the world, and I think that's something that everybody wishes for, and right now we have it.
They've taken center stage, forcing a renewed debate around gun control from the State House in Florida to the White House.
We should work together to make our schools safe for our kids.
Last week, Florida's governor signed a new law raising the minimum age to buy a firearm to 21 and banning the sale of bump stocks. A remarkable achievement given the state's history, but the students aren't satisfied. Many don't want teachers armed. They do want a ban on AR-15 style weapons and tighter background checks.
In the aftermath of that terrible tragedy, we're taking very strong action. As you know, bump stocks.
Both provisions were missing when Donald Trump announced his new gun control measures earlier this week.
Like, we know that this is just something so that you could say that you did something. It's nothing. It's fluff, but first steps. It's a journey.
So you have to write this ordinance yourself.
I do.
Along the way, they're inspiring change at the local level. In the nearby city of Weston, Mayor Daniel Sterner is trying to ban guns on city property. He's hoping to defy a Florida state law that forbids a municipality from creating its own gun regulations. Sterner could face a fine and removal from office.
They are an inspiration and should be an inspiration to anyone and everyone that cares about this issue.
The students are determined that while the flowers and memorials will fade and the media will move on, their activism isn't going away. After today's walkout, the next big event is a march in Washington on the 24th. They're expecting 500,000 people to continue the press for stricter gun control.
We're pushing each other. It's a family that we kind of created, a family that runs a movement.
A movement, he says, that will take advantage of every stage they have.
For a while, I didn't know why I was on this planet. I liked to act and I liked to be an idiot, but I didn't know what any of that was coming to. And I guess I forgot that using my voice is something that I can always do. And I forgot that these people using their voices and us speaking together, we're unlimited.
Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Parkland, Florida.
Last month, the day after the shooting, I went to a vigil in Parkland and spoke to some of the students, including Eden Hebron in grade 9, who said she wanted to talk about seeing her best friend, Alyssa Aladef, who had been shot and killed in front of her.
The shooter shoots through our door, and then shoots through our door, and then next thing I know, my best friend, she's like falls back, and she just stops, and then she's like screaming, and then I hear silence, and all I can think of is she died.
We wanted to see how Hebron is doing 1 month later, and so today I asked her what it's been like going back to school.
It's very hard because, I look at the building and it all comes back to me, and when I'm sitting in class and the kids who I had classes with, they're no longer there. I mean, in my biology class, I sat right behind Alex Schachter, and he's not there anymore, and I'm just looking at an empty desk. And Gina was in that class too, and it's so hard to think that these kids are gone. I just think they're on vacation or they were sick that day, and then I realized they were shot and they're dead.
How would you describe how the students as a group are doing 1 month later?
Right now it's kind of just we're all broken, and we're all, traumatized, and we're all grieving, but, we're all, again, we're all a family, and, some of us, get upset like when we look around and there's cameras all over. And like obviously I very like want to get the story out there and everything, but for us, like I know a lot of my friends they just want to go back to normalcy, and for us this is so out of any one of us could imagine, that we all kind of just want to get back on track, and we want to be able to not act like it was before, but be able to do the things normally that we were able to do before.
How long do you think that's going to take?
I don't think that, everything will go back to normal for a while, but I do think, maybe in a few weeks it will start to die down a little. And, I think right now, like, this topic is the only conversations I have. Like, whenever I talk to a friend at lunch, at school, in class, it's only about the shooting. It's about, it's whether like, oh, did you see Alex die? And I'll be like, yeah, I did. And, it's a lot of us just want to figure it out. And I think that in a few weeks it will start to not be our main priority in conversation.
Eden, we appreciate you speaking with us.
Of course.
And there's another big event ahead. March 24th, that is the Saturday after next. Thousands are expected in Washington for what's being called March for Our Lives. But Andrew, let's move on now to a story that's affecting children in this country.
Yeah, but in a very different way. CBC News has learned of some troubling allegations involving a foster care operator in Manitoba. The core question, are high-risk kids properly being taken care of, particularly in a system where almost every single child is Indigenous? Well, as Katie Nicholson shows us, getting a clear answer is proving to be almost impossible.
Children in care deserve...
Bernadette Smith isn't just the opposition critic for child welfare. She used to be a client. Today, that meant calling out the minister responsible for child welfare after explosive allegations against a foster care operator.
This minister still hasn't answered my question.
For 8 years, Manitoba's Dakota Ojibwe Child and Family Services sent high-risk, high-needs children to a private service provider called Specialized Foster Homes in Brandon. But 2 years ago, the agreement fell apart. The reasons now clear. In new court filings, the Indigenous Family Service Agency alleges Specialized Foster Homes let children in their care engage in illegal activities and do drugs, let staff who were subjects of abuse allegations provide care, engaged in inappropriate discipline procedures, and failed to ensure appropriate criminal records, child abuse registry, and prior contact checks have been conducted.
If these allegations are proven to be true, it's troubling.
Also troubling to Smith, there have been at least 5 provincial investigations into that foster home operator since 2014, and one by the Manitoba Children's Advocate. Yet none of the findings have been made public.
Well, what is the point then?
First Nations family advocate Cora Morgan worries the blanket of privacy around the investigations keeps the public in the dark about the problems in the system.
Mainstream society needs to know, because, I want to believe in the days of residential school, mainstream society wasn't aware of what was happening to these children.
For its part, Specialized Foster Home says the first priority for us and our teams has always been the safety and well-being of the children. Its owner continues to provide other services for vulnerable kids, including temporary places of safety for children in crisis. In fact, it received more than $1.5 million from the province last year. Which brings us back to Manitoba's question period.
Why is this minister continuing to pay someone accused of putting kids at risk?
Protecting vulnerable children is something that we take very seriously.
As proof, the Minister of Families produced this letter sent 2 years ago to the Children's Advocate, demanding it look into what happened at those foster homes. The minister said that resulted in recommendations and the concerns are being addressed. But like the reports before it, the details will not be made public. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Winnipeg.
There's one more thing I want to show you about all this. There are about 11,000 children in foster care right now in Manitoba. That's almost double what it was 10 years ago. And 90% of those kids are Indigenous. Let's take a look now at what else we're working on tonight on The National. A narrow and unlikely win for the Democrats in the Pennsylvania special election. Is that a bad omen for Donald Trump?
CBC News has learned just how bad things are inside 24 Sussex and how much it will cost to fix.
And we continue our special CBC News series about the world's water shortages. Tonight, we meet people looking for solutions.
If we ever have to, we are going to turn this into a composting toilet, which I have mixed feelings about.
And over on the someplace else side, maybe you'll find you somebody else, which is plenty to worry about, even if you happen to feel pretty good at the time.
But you live in a town, any town, and you spend most of your time as if you know what it's all about. You know where you're going, when really you don't know, because it's the town that's going, and you're just along for the ride.
Democrats in the United States are a happy bunch today. They managed a pretty important win in a special election in Pennsylvania for a seat in Congress. But boy, it was a close one. They came out ahead by just 627 votes. That's a fraction of 1% of the vote. Now, the results aren't official yet. A few provisional, military, and overseas ballots still have to be counted, but they won't be enough to change the result. And as Paul Hunter shows us, it's the bigger picture, where the momentum is, that has Republicans really worried.
Well, it took a little longer than we thought, but we did it.
It's a stunner. Not only did Connor Lamb win a seat in Congress last night for the Democrats,
We have a slight issue with the piece there. We'll try to get that back for you. But meantime, I should say the midterm elections, they are coming up in about 8 months' time. So you can imagine the entire congressional map may have to be redrawn. Okay, let's take you quickly to break. Still ahead on The National, artists from around the world paid tribute to Stephen Hawking following word of his death. We're going to hear why some of them just had to draw him in our moment of the day.
How long does it take from the period of time where you have an idea for a show till I see it?
It's very kind for you to think I have an idea for a show. But no, if I have, from the time someone pitches something till it's on TV is roughly 9 months, just because the animation process is so laborious that it takes about 9 months to finish an episode.
Which is a long time in TV terms.
Yes.
So how is it that the show, in any terms,
yes.
How is it that the show has maintained its ability to stay relevant when it's actually sort of in time distant from the things that we're watching every day in the news?
You know what, it's funny, it's in a way I think we don't do stuff that is timely. Like we won't do a joke about whatever crazy thing Trump said this morning whatever day this airs, that will be valid. But whatever crazy thing he said, because 9 months from now there'll be 7,000 other crazy things that will have happened. But we do 2 little rewrites along that 9-month cycle, and sometimes in the last rewrite we can slip something in that's only a month away from the air date. But what I think is I think the bigger picture about the show that's really been great for the show is that characters never age. There's 30 seasons almost of the show, and you could turn on any season and be confused for any other season. And we try, I think, to write stories that are a little bit universal. So maybe some of the relevance just comes out of the fact that it's this evergreen and this constant, and it feels relevant even when.
But when the White House is arguably churning out comedic material for you all the time, is it hard to resist the temptation to kind of reference something?
I mean, that's what Twitter's for, I think, for individual writers and for Donald Trump himself. But it's hard to resist. But we just know, unless it's a big issue that is going to be around 9 months or a year from now, we just don't touch it in that specific sense. Stuff about like gay marriage, we'll do an episode on that, but nothing, about a tax bill or something like that, because it's just not going to be around.
I mean, obviously we have the Rick Mercer show, widely successful here. This hour is 22 minutes, but we don't have the late night comedic culture that is, like a bedrock now in the U.S. and it is driving a lot of the political conversation. Think about Jimmy Kimmel.
Right.
I mean, you're a Canadian who's lived and worked in the States for years now. Why do you think that isn't part of the culture here?
The thing about the States, it's just volume. There's so many shows, and they're all desperate for content, and luckily the president has been very generous about providing content to all these shows. He's a real jobs creator. He's given all these comedy writers work. But I don't, I think just that in the States now, there does feel like there's a little bit of a shift where it's almost like these performers have an understanding with the audience that we all don't like Trump, right? It's this assumption where I think with previous presidents, the country was a little bit more split, 50-50, but now it feels like there's a bit of a license to really go a step further, because it's this, you feel like you're preaching to the choir to some extent. And that has maybe emboldened them a little bit, whereas previous, there was Obama, it was funny stuff about Obama, but I think you respected that half the country didn't like Obama.
When you talk about going a step further, I mean, there is a step too far, right?
Yes.
There was a writer for SNL who tweeted about Barron Trump right after the inauguration. She was fired the same day. Kathy Griffin famously held up this sort of mock head of Trump, and her career has really paid for it.
Yeah, I'm I'll say I'm friends with Kathy. She will send an angry letter saying we are not friends. Her lawyers will be all over this. But I've sort of seen through her what's happened as a result of different people react differently and think this was obscene or too far. I didn't necessarily think it was too far at the time. I thought it was just an art piece. That was 6 months ago, and I feel like now if that happened, I don't think that response would be the same, because I think this meter has moved as to what is obscene. And I still think people that are innocents, like Barron Trump, and anyone that is, I'll just say, innocent should not be dragged into it, but there's no way Donald Trump, of course, isn't innocent, and he says horrible things, and someone did something maybe counteractive to that. So anyhow, I think that meter has moved where that wouldn't be as obscene today as it was at the time.
Tonight on The National, another winter wallop for parts of the Maritimes. A powerful nor'easter hit the region today, bringing with it, as you can see, heavy snow, high winds, and lots of problems. In New Brunswick, all schools were closed for the day. There were also widespread power outages and delays for just about anyone trying to get just about anywhere. Search crews in Montreal scoured riverbanks today near the home of a 10-year-old boy gone missing. Ariel Jeffrey Kwaku hasn't been seen for days now, ever since he left his house on Monday to see a friend. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward.
We will do everything within our power to get her back home as soon as we can, and we're not going to rest for a second. We will speak out to as many people as we can.
Those are the sons of a Canadian-Iranian professor who died last month in an Iranian prison. They fled the country last week, but their mother was held back, her passport confiscated. So they've gone to the UN in New York to meet with Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland to ask for help. They believe the Iranian government is trying to intimidate and silence their family about what happened to their father.
All week, we've been talking about the water crisis in Canada and around the world. We started in Cape Town, South Africa, which is surrounded by water and yet running out of water. A situation so desperate, the same technology used to drill for oil is now being used for the treasure of fresh water. The city's dilemma is just part of the global water crisis that will almost certainly get worse before it gets better. After looking at the problems, tonight we hunt for solutions. Margaret Evans takes us back to Cape Town, where people are rearranging their lives to get ready for day zero.
Marina de Gama, once almost entirely rural, now testament to Cape Town's population growth, straining resources in the midst of an unprecedented water shortage. Masha Dutoy has seen the future. She imagines it for a living. A science fiction writer and artist who believes Mad Max scenarios for the Cape Town of tomorrow aren't really so far-fetched.
Even if day zero doesn't happen and they don't actually switch off our water, I don't think we're very soon going to go back to the days when we didn't have to think about it.
And Dutoy has thought about it more than most.
So this is the basin.
Just about every nook and cranny in the house she shares with her husband and some friends from the animal kingdom is geared towards saving water. The most important is the simplest, catching rain, if it comes.
So you've got our main water tank, 1,000 litre. It's full. It feels such a good feeling. Yeah. You can feel the water's cool, and they run over into a bin here.
They're called JoJo tanks. The stores that sell them have become Dutoy's mecca.
So we've actually got like a little bit extra.
The water she collects washes clothes and dishes. And probiotic soap means she can use leftover water on the plants. All succulents, of course. As for showering, Cape Townians have been asked to keep them short. Local pop stars have even helped out by coming up with 2-minute shower songs to help people keep track of the time.
I told everybody, Cape Town started the rap. You need to double check first that you turned off the tap. Yeah.
So you stand in that and it catches all the water that drains off you.
Dutoy has given up showers, bathing out of a bucket, and she's cropped her hair to make washing it easier. It hasn't been the hardest thing she imagined.
I would have thought, like, not being able to have a big, long bath or wash your hair and all of that, but it's watching your plants die. That's the tough thing.
Not many of Dutoy's neighbors seem to be making the same effort, and she admits some of them think she's over the top.
I'm not sure whether people are just not aware or whether I'm super obsessed or what.
Part of it, she says, is about keeping panic at bay. Being prepared helps her feel more in control. Scientists will tell you Dutoy is not the one out of step, that Cape Town has indeed become a city of the future, and that future is dry.
We'll have a shorter interval between the droughts, and we'll have less rainfall. That's what we've got to now plan for.
Expert Kevin Winter says that might mean rethinking sanitation. A single flush uses up to 5 days of potable water, and some here are advocating dry sanitation.
It's taken off slowly, but it's part of an interesting debate that if we're going to be moving into a more climate-proofed city, then maybe that's the area that we should be starting to consider.
Extra backup water?
Masha Dutoy is way ahead as usual. One of her recycling bins reserved for just such an eventuality.
If we ever have to, we are going to turn this into a composting toilet, which I have mixed feelings about. But, you know, if you have to, what can you do? We just don't know what's going to happen.
Nobody does. And Cape Town is now engaged in a race for alternatives to relying on rain-fed reservoirs. A desalination plant is being constructed just down the coast from Marina de Gama. One of 3 being built. Cape Town is facing a brave new world. Being able to imagine it is the first step. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Cape Town.
Yes, Cape Town on the southern tip of Africa is the extreme example of a water crisis. But the planet is peppered with places enduring real water stress, all of them afraid of turning into the next Cape Town. So our question is, who's getting it right? Well, let's look at solutions coming from a place with its own problem. Right here is the city-state of Singapore, population around 5.5 million. It's technically an island, but its fresh water has traditionally come almost exclusively from a reservoir in Malaysia, way up here. Between drought and the politics of a mercurial neighbor, which uses control of that reservoir as leverage, Singapore has had to get smarter to survive. From the moment it was established back in 1959, Singapore knew it had a problem, had to start rationing water. Its rivers were too filthy to be useful. Cleaning them up was smart, but not enough. So it's had to turn to technology and to a shift in thinking.
That is what Singapore does differently, that it has made water a topic of conversation of people.
Singaporeans have been taught for decades that water has value and wasting it isn't acceptable. There's now daily monitoring of usage and apps to warn when it gets too high.
You too can save water at home by installing thimbles in taps and shower heads.
There are gadgets galore and a complex pricing system. On average, Singaporeans use 143 liters per person per day. Keep in mind, a Canadian uses 250 liters per person per day. In July, the cost is going up. Singaporeans will pay roughly $50 a month per household on usage alone. On top of that, they'll pay a water conservation tax, a tax on the number of toilets they have, and a tax to pay to clean the used water. That last part may sound strange, but think of it this way. Singapore considers its water rented to its citizens. Every single drop that goes down any drain is reused.
When the water goes down the drain, it goes to treatment plants. 100% of it is treated to very high water quality, and then it is distributed to all the users. Same quality, same amount. That's a big difference in Singapore compared to many developed and developing cities in the world.
The official term for that treated old water is new water. And the plan is for new water to meet 55% of Singapore's demand by 2060. There's a huge investment to make that happen. A deep tunnel sewage system 60 meters below ground, 8,000 kilometers of drains feeding into reservoirs to try to collect all the rainwater. It also invested in desalination plants, but they're proving too expensive and too energy intensive. So there's a bold new plan. Invent a membrane that copies what happens in nature.
What Singapore is working on already for years is on developing membranes so they can treat water using less energy and water that has different levels of salinity.
Singapore has basically gone from a place of need to one positioning itself as the Silicon Valley of water. It's exporting its technology, it's drawing investment, and it's even starting to boost the amount of treated water it sends back to Malaysia. And our special water coverage continues with Derek Stoffel this Sunday on The National.
The water problem isn't going to get any better.
Derek looks at how Israel and its neighbors are putting politics aside to work together in one of the world's driest regions to capture every drop of water they can.
When television began in Canada in 1952, TV news was largely an afterthought, a low priority.
Stand by, roll film.
CBC Chief News Editor Dan MacArthur worried that TV news might become more show business than news business. Little did he dream that from these beginnings, TV news would become the most powerful instrument of journalism ever known.
Good evening. This is Lorne Green. This week, our cameramen all over the world went to get the news where and when it was happening. Here is what we've selected from the pictures they took. Our first story.
That first story on the first news program was a dandy.
The story of a manhunt.
The Boyd gang had
Jail
just escaped from Toronto's Don Jail.
Within hours, 2,000 police had begun the hunt, and the unofficial word was shoot to kill. Indochina, unlike Korea, is an unpublicized war, and unlike Korea, an almost forgotten war.
Dan MacArthur wanted the news service to be purely a rewrite operation. He was afraid that having reporters might compromise CBC objectivity, as Peter Stursberg remembers.
He didn't want reporters, of course, as war correspondents,
that was a thin edge of the wedge in a sense. But he didn't want reporters. And I remember, and then after the war, the only reporters that he would agree to were foreign correspondents.
I can recall some of the early days when if someone called you up on the phone and told you there was something happening locally, or a political meeting or a fire or almost anything, you were under instructions to say to them, would you please call this number at Canadian Press and give them the information because we get our service from CP. It was part of that endeavor to keep the news service on this totally straight and narrow in the perception of politicians and the public.
Don McDonald says MacArthur was almost fearsome in his demands that CBC editors be totally objective in preparing their newscasts.
MacArthur had provided a list of all editors who had certified that they were not members of a political party. And to have to do that illustrates to you what his concerns were and how the steps he had to take to try and resist those pressures.
Covering politicians in Ottawa proved especially challenging for the CBC. One of the first network newsmen in Ottawa was Tom Earle.
Now that the pipeline bill has gone through the House of Commons. Well, it's a great relief. We've had 3 weeks of debate, including the worst obstruction that I've ever seen in my experience in the House of Commons.
You weren't allowed in the press gallery. Toward the end, before we were allowed to actually join in 1959, we were given certain privileges by the Speaker, like being allowed to sit in the diplomatic gallery and take notes. And you could attend press gallery press conferences, providing you didn't ask any questions, because you weren't a real newspaper man, or a wire service man, you were radio TV, which was airy-fairy.
Canadian election campaigns in the year 1957. We're surrounded by some trappings that are new in Canadian election campaigns, dome cars and television.
Okay, let's get to that Paul Hunter story now. And again, we apologize for the technical glitch earlier in the program. At issue is the possibly changing face of American electoral politics, if last night is any indicator. The Democrats won a seat they once didn't even run a candidate for. So Paul looks at their new momentum and what it might mean for Republicans in this crucial year.
Well, it took a little longer than we thought, but we did it.
It's a stunner. Not only did Conor Lamb win a seat in Congress last night for the Democrats, pending any recount, but he did it where 16 months ago, voters turned out in force for Donald Trump and the Republicans.
You did it. You did it.
Voters, it turns out, now with second thoughts on Trump.
I am a Republican. I did vote for Trump, and I didn't see what I wanted to see. I voted for Conor for the honesty and integrity that we needed in District 18.
He's a very competent person.
Consider that Trump himself rallied alongside the Republican candidate here just last weekend, and that this is a district that so favors Republicans, Pennsylvania courts have ordered the electoral map redrawn for future elections. But, say Republicans now,
it's pretty clear to me that, we're running into a very major headwind.
Already felt in Alabama, where a scandal-plagued Republican fell to a Democrat last fall, and in a growing list of other states.
This is not an aberration. This is a trend. We won state special elections earlier this year, Kentucky and Wisconsin and New Hampshire.
We're knocking door to door.
And as CBC News saw a few weeks ago, even in staunchly Republican Texas, Democrats are wondering, can they win here too?
Yes, we can dream big in this state, and we can actually achieve it. It's not only possible, it is becoming increasingly more likely.
But is it really happening? The midterms now loom ever closer. Some call it a Democratic wave. Others label it Trump-grets. Regardless, it's clear voters here are increasingly fed up with the way this country's being run, and that Republicans under Trump are bracing. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Those midterm elections Paul mentioned are coming up in 8 months, so a victory in Pennsylvania is perhaps short-lived. In November, all 435 seats in the House of Representatives go right back up for grabs, as they are every 2 years. And as Paul said, Pennsylvania District 18 won't even exist anymore as is because the congressional map is being redrawn.
Here at home, the federal NDP leader faced some tough questions today. Video has surfaced of Jagmeet Singh at a Sikh independence rally 3 years ago in San Francisco. But he says that appearance doesn't mean that he supports separatism or extremism. The CBC's David Cochran explains.
The chants make it clear what this was all about. A call for an independent Sikh state known as Khalistan. Signs called it a sovereignty rally. A poster calling the leader of a violent Sikh extremist group a saint dominated the stage where Jagmeet Singh gave his speech.
If we were targeted, if you're targeted because the way you look, your appearance, your beliefs.
Singh's speech didn't mention Khalistan. It focused on the cycle of violence sparked by the 1984 crackdown on Sikh extremists by the Indian military. Soldiers killed hundreds of armed militants who had occupied the Golden Temple of Amritsar. In retaliation, Sikh bodyguards assassinated Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, which was swiftly followed by anti-Sikh riots that led to the deaths of thousands.
We were being targeted, our people were being massacred, we were facing a genocide.
Behind Singh was that poster of Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, the leader of that Sikh extremist group that occupied the Golden Temple and also massacred hundreds. In a statement, Singh said he was at the rally as an advocate for peace and human rights, to focus on helping Sikhs move through the pain and trauma of that 1984 massacre. He did condemn all acts of terrorism, but he did not specifically denounce the extremists on the poster being commemorated as a saint. It's not the first time Singh has parsed his criticism of Sikh extremism.
The violence that was perpetrated against innocent Canadian lives is something we all denounce.
Singh has condemned the Air India bombing, the worst mass murder in Canadian history. But he's refused to condemn Talvinder Parmar, the acknowledged mastermind of the attack.
I don't know who was responsible, but I think we need to find out who's truly responsible.
Concerns that Canada is soft on Sikh extremism dogged the Prime Minister on his recent trip to India. It's now an issue for the NDP to manage too. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
Tonight is the Prime Minister's official residence that is once again making some headlines of its own. CBC News has learned 24 Sussex is in such bad shape, the estimated cost to fix it has more than doubled in the last decade. As Catherine Cullen reports, that's in part because of what is hiding between the ceilings and walls.
It's gone from fit for the Queen and global superpowers to a drafty house that's the butt of jokes.
Nice hairdryer.
Now, CBC News has learned the 24 Sussex asbestos problem is worse than originally thought. According to an engineering report obtained through access to information, the grey plaster layer that forms the majority of the walls or ceilings of the subject building were noted to be asbestos containing. That's on top of the asbestos they already knew about in some pipe insulation, drywall compound, and floor tiles. The report says it can be left alone as long as the building is maintained.
Well, I'm not surprised.
Laura Lazansky notes the fire retardant, now known to cause cancer, has been used in many public buildings.
Now, just because you're exposed to it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to develop an asbestos-related disease. But the longer you're exposed, the potential risk grows exponentially.
While generations of politicians and their families have tried to make 24 Sussex home, it's clear they didn't all love it. Listen to what Lester B. Pearson's wife thought.
And it might have been more practical to tear it all down and begin again.
A decade ago, the Auditor General said repairs alone would cost nearly $10 million. But the documents CBC News obtained mention more fixes are now needed at an estimated $26 million. As Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau refused to move in, and earlier this year, he acknowledged to CBC News the politics of fixing up the place.
No Prime Minister ever wanted to spend a penny of taxpayer dollars on upkeeping that house. So I'm fairly resigned to not living in that house for the entire term.
He says he wants a Crown corporation to make the politically tricky decisions about the future of 24 Sussex. In the meantime, the home he grew up in sits idle. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Still ahead on The National, remembering Stephen Hawking. We take you to the only building in the world to bear his name in Waterloo, Ontario.
More than leaving a void, he leaves an inspiration, and that will stay around for centuries.
Call it Tommy Mania. In the very church where Tommy Douglas preached, his adoring fans, many old friends of the man, gathered to cheer him on.
For every man, woman, and child, irrespective of their income, their age, or their business anything.
After weeks of suspense, the CBC's greatest Canadian would be revealed. There was no doubt who the people's choice was here.
Well, I'm a strong supporter of Tommy Douglas. I think he's done such a great thing for our Canada. He's an amazing man.
A woman tells me her doctor.
Douglas was Saskatchewan's premier from 1944 to 1961, but his greatest legacy, championing universal health care.
Medical care is so important that it ought not to have a price tag on it.
Glenn Rasmussen worked on Douglas's election campaigns.
There's great Canadians, but I think he is one of the greatest.
Is he the greatest?
I think he is the greatest.
It was time to find out if enough Canadians agreed.
Tommy!
It's right. It's absolutely A1. And he's the right choice.
It's just absolutely perfect. The people have really spoken, and it shows what a great man he was.
Tommy Douglas never became prime minister, but in this contest he beat three of them. And nowhere was the victory sweeter than here. Dean Gutile, CBC News, Weyburn.
Didn't have politicians arguing for politicians, etc. And I thought it was great to see Terry Fox do as well as he did. So, but again, I think it was fairly predictable to see someone like Tommy Douglas to win. So, but overall, it was entertaining.
My wife and I voted for Banting, but he came fourth. So, no, it was a good idea. Good. Nice to have a different perspective on things, and it gives you something to watch since there's no ice available.
Well, I thought it was kind of a big disappointment because Don Cherry didn't win. Neither did Wayne Gretzky.
There's a manhunt for me!
You come with us.
We need each other, Slade. What did you find out?
You know, there's another thing that tends to motivate people.
What's that?
Revenge.
Cambridge University's flags are at half-mast, with students lining up to pay tribute to one of the world's most gifted scientists ever to wander the school's halls. Stephen Hawking died in the small hours of this morning. His mark on science was impressive. His mark on culture, indelible. Hawking was perhaps the only modern-day physicist with global name recognition, a scientific superstar.
I think I knew from about the age of 9 or 10 that I wanted to be a scientist.
Science will remember how Hawking helped to define modern cosmology, the structure and story of our universe from black holes to the Big Bang.
Stephen Hawking is the greatest scientist since Newton, Galileo, and Einstein.
But even more remarkable was bringing that science to the public. His 1988 book was translated into 30 languages and went on to sell 10 million copies. Wherever he went, he was a sensation.
My illness has meant that I cannot use pencil and paper, so I have to do things in my head. I'm impatient with waste of time. There is so much I want to do.
Early on, Hawking became a kind of living symbol of the power of genius, our gargantuan mind soaring beyond the boundaries of a small, fragile body, transcending even that cliche with wit and a Cheshire cat smile.
My original aim was to write a book that would sell on airport bookstalls. But for that, maybe the publisher should have put a naked woman rather than me on the cover.
Life with his condition wasn't easy. There was private struggle and strife. But his decades-spanning career continued undiminished.
I have been wheelchair-bound for almost 4 decades, and the chance to float free in zero-G will be wonderful.
He pushed against his own limits while calling for humanity to transcend its limits, supporting space exploration and the search for extraterrestrial life. And he never stopped writing, never stopped publishing.
Stephen Hawking, the world's smartest man.
And performing as a pop culture Poindexter god.
Professor Hawking, it's an honor and a privilege to meet you, sir.
I know.
When he was diagnosed with ALS, doctors said he wouldn't live past 25. Hawking died peacefully at home at the age of 76. Among his many memorable words, "It would not be much of a universe if it wasn't home to the people you love."
Hawking generally didn't want people to name things after him, but he made an exception for one building, and it happens to be in Canada. Ron Charles went there today to find out more about that special relationship.
Stephen Hawking looms large at Canada's Perimeter Institute, a well-funded centre where the world's top theoretical physicists hash out ideas. Before Neil Turok became the Institute's director in 2008, he was a Cambridge University colleague of Hawking's, which is how he convinced Hawking to lend his support and his name.
Stephen was the very first person to accept a visiting research chair at Perimeter, and that sets the standard.
Hawking did 2 short stints here as visiting chair. Back at Cambridge University in the 1980s, Canadian Raymond Laflamme was among Hawking's small group of postgraduate students. Today, Laflamme heads up quantum computing research at the University of Waterloo and works with Perimeter.
From an intellectual point of view, working with Stephen was incredibly motivating. He has great ideas. He challenges the students to kind of think deeply, pick up really interesting questions.
Hawking's relationship to Canada was not solely through the Perimeter Institute. John Polanyi, a Canadian Nobel laureate in chemistry, met Hawking on several of his trips here.
More than leaving a void, he leaves an inspiration, and that will stay around for centuries. It's no exaggeration.
At the Perimeter Institute, a wing had already been named in Hawking's honor, the only building in the world he allowed to bear his name. Ron Charles, CBC News, Waterloo, Ontario.
Stephen Hawking's death brought an outpouring of tributes from around the world, including from artists who paid their respects the best way they knew how. These are just some of the illustrations that were quick to make their way online, highlighting Hawking's universe as they saw it. We caught up with 2 artists and asked them how Hawking influenced their life and work. And this is our moment of the day.
It's not about his physicality, it's about his personality, his mind, his way of thinking. Stephen Hawking was a huge inspiration for me and my childhood hero. In my art, I'm interested in space, galaxy, planets, and Stephen helps me understand the nature of the reality. I've decided to make an illustration for him. And not show his wheelchair. For me, he was the biggest thinker ever.
Stephen Hawking, to me, represents somebody who lived completely untethered by the rules of our reality. I think he lived in absolute defiance of what we thought was possible.
You know, one thing I'll add, just because the one illustrator talked about not wanting to show the wheelchair, it's actually interesting to note Hawking in many interviews often spoke about how he didn't see the wheelchair or his condition as limiting him at all. He still pursued everything in life that he thought was worth pursuing, wheelchair or not.
Right, in some ways it gave him wings, but everyone is noting online too that there's some sort of symmetry in the date of this death, that he died on Einstein's birthday and on Pi Day.
And speaking of online, I just woke up like a lot of people did to so many social media messages, not from scientists, not from diplomats, just friends of mine who clearly were moved by his life and his death. That is The National for March 14th. Good night.
Good night.